For over 30 years, the Getaway Special Team at Utah State University has conducted microgravity research to enhance mankind's ability to explore space. One of these research projects included an experiment to study nucleate boiling in microgravity, which flew aboard the space shuttle in 2001. While this experiment yielded good data that has furthered our understanding of boiling in space, it was decided that a follow-up experiment was needed in order to shed more light on some of the gray areas in our understanding of this phenomenon. To this end, FUNBOE, or Follow-Up Nucleate Boiling On-Flight Experiment, was designed. FUNBOE has far better video resolution and frame rate than the 2001 experiment, and it also collects temperature data that is much more accurate, including a much faster sampling rate. Other additions to the experiment include accelerometer, pressure, and wire temperature measurements. Also, the heat flux from the heating element to the water is varied in order to allow for a more complete analysis of boiling in microgravity. The data collected from this experiment will provide for a more solid understanding of nucleate boiling behavior in space, which allows for the proper design of heat management systems for spacecraft. A proposal was submitted to NASA in October of 2009 to allow the gas team to fly our experiment on board their Weightless Wonder aircraft. NASA selected the proposal in December of 2009, and the gas team spent most of their free time during the spring semester getting FUNBOE ready for its flight in June of 2010. The build of the experiment went fairly smooth, and FUNBOE was shipped down to Houston just a few weeks before the team was scheduled to fly. Upon arrival at Ellington Airfield, just outside of Houston, the gas team assembled the experiment and conducted ground testing in preparation for the test readiness review that was in just a few days. Also during this time, the flyers underwent preparation for their upcoming adventure, which included hypobaric chamber testing, among other things. During ground testing, it was discovered that the heat and humidity in Houston had done more than just make us miserable. The glue that was used to seal up leaks on the water cells had given up the ghost in the intense heat inside the hangar. We decided that bathroom silicone caulk was a good choice to seal the cells, given that the climate inside a hot shower was the closest thing to the climate inside the hangar that we could think of. The silicone worked perfectly, and we passed our test readiness review with no revisions needed on our design. The experiment was then loaded onto the plane, and we were ready for flight day 1. Unfortunately, during the first flight, it was discovered that our experiment and the power system on the plane did not get along. Repeatedly during the flight, the ground fault circuit interrupter kept tripping and shutting off power to FUNBOE. As a result, there was no useful data collected during the first flight. The team worked furiously for the next few hours to solve the problem, and the experiment was then ready for a second try. Fortunately, the second flight went swimmingly. None of the problems that plagued the experiment on the first flight caused any problems on the second flight. FUNBOE recorded over 10 minutes of boiling from each of the 6 high-definition cameras, along with accurate temperature, pressure, and acceleration data. By all accounts, FUNBOE was a success. After the flight, the gas team packed up the experiment and then spent the next few days as tourists, soaking up all the history and magnitude of what NASA has done and continues to do today. The tours of the Space Center and the surrounding facilities simply reaffirm the passion for space exploration that the gas team has. While there are a lot of impressive things to see in Houston, nothing compares to the Saturn V rocket. It stands, or rather lays on its side, as a monument to what great things mankind can do when working together for a great cause. Having had success with the experiment and having been inspired by the few days spent as tourists, the gas team headed back home to begin sifting through the large amounts of data collected. Although analysis of the data is incomplete, the preliminary analysis suggests that the data collected is reliable and thorough. One of the more notable things so far is that the boiling that was recorded by FUNBOE appears to be very similar to the boiling that was done in the 2001 experiment, which should allow for further validation of the conclusions made from the previous experiment. In addition to validation of previous conclusions, the quality of the data recorded by FUNBOE should allow for new conclusions to be made about the characteristics of boiling in microgravity. This research will enhance the ability of scientists and engineers to design heat management systems for space applications, which is necessary for man to venture any further into space.